So India is making a huge bet. We're talking nearly 1 lakh crore to completely reshape its job market. It's a new program called the Employment Linked Incentive Scheme, or ELI for short. And honestly, it's one of the biggest job creation pushes we've seen anywhere in the world. So let's get into it. What is this thing? Why is it so necessary? And, well, can it actually work?
All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to look at the sheer scale of this thing. Then we'll dive into the big employment puzzles that made this scheme so critical. After that, we'll check out the state of skills in India, get into the nitty-gritty of how it all works, and finally, we'll look at the big picture, the outlook for jobs.
Okay, let's kick things off with the big picture. The government's rolling out this new employment-linked incentive scheme, the ELI, on August 1st, 2025. And you know, they're not being shy about it. It's being framed as a total game changer for India's entire workforce.
And when you look at the official mission, wow, it's incredibly ambitious. They're aiming to empower jobs, formalize the workforce, and fuel economic growth all at the same time. That's a tall order. So, to really grasp the scale of this bet, you just have to look at the money. The total budget, nearly 1 lakh crore rupees. Now, to put that in perspective, that's 1 trillion rupees. We're talking about roughly 12 billion US dollars. This is just a colossal financial commitment for one single policy goal. And what's that money supposed to achieve? Well, it's all about this number, 3.5 crore. That's 35 million new jobs. I mean, that's not just an ambitious target. It literally makes the ELI scheme one of the biggest employment initiatives happening anywhere on the planet right now. The vision for this, straight from the Prime Minister, is pretty clear. The idea is to build on what's been done before and create crores of new jobs. But there's a really specific, tangible hook here, especially for first-timers. They'll get 1 month's wages paid for by the government. And this is what's really crucial to understand. This isn't just about hitting some big job number. No, it's a much more strategic play. They're trying to solve a bunch of problems at once, pushing people into formal, secure jobs, giving manufacturing a serious boost, and even beefing up financial literacy and the social safety net for everyone. Which, of course, brings up a really important question. Why do you even need a scheme this massive? To get that, we've got to dive into India's pretty complex employment puzzle. So, what are these deep-rooted problems in the job market that call for something so huge? Well, the data tells a really interesting and kind of complicated story. Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. If you just look at the overall adult unemployment rate, it seems pretty low, right? 3.2%. But that's not the whole story. For young people, it's a completely different picture. The rate skyrockets to 10% for those between 15 and 29. And for people looking for their very first job, it's over 9%. This is the exact group the scheme is designed to help. And then there's this other massive challenge. Just look at this split. A staggering 82% of India's entire workforce is in the informal sector. That means no job security, no social benefits, no steady income for a huge chunk of the population. Trying to shift that balance is right at the heart of the ELI scheme. But wait, it gets even more complex. See, even inside the so-called formal sector, there's this trend of informalization. What that means is more and more people are on short-term contracts without the stability or benefits you'd expect from a permanent job. So the real problem isn't just about creating any job, it's about creating good, secure ones. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the demand for jobs. But what about the other side of the coin, the supply? What are the skills of India's youth? The very people this whole thing is for, what do they actually look like? This map here gives us a fantastic bird's-eye view. According to the India Skills Report, you've got several states that are just packed with employable young people. We're talking places like Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Kerala. They're becoming these major talent hubs. It tells us there's a huge pool of young talent just ready and waiting. And if we dig a little deeper and break it down by education, the numbers show that the highest employability is with folks who have technical and management degrees. So graduates with MBAs, computer science degrees, or engineering degrees, they're seen as super employable. And that makes sense, right? It lines up with what a modernizing economy needs. Okay, but here's the paradox. The ILO report points out that even with all these highly employable young people, there's still a big skills mismatch. You have tons of technically qualified youths who are really struggling to find a job that actually fits their degree. It's a classic case of a disconnect between the skills people have and the skills the market is actually looking for. All right, so we've got the context. Now for the big question. How does this whole scheme actually work in practice? Let's get into the nuts and bolts for both the employees and the companies hiring them. So the engine that makes this whole thing run is something called Direct Benefit Transfer, or DBT. Basically, it's a system that uses your Aadhaar number to put government money straight into your bank account. It's brilliant, really, because it makes everything transparent and gets rid of any middlemen, which means less fraud and fewer delays. So let's say you're a young person getting your first job. For you, the process is pretty simple. You just link your UAN and your bank account to your Aadhaar. After you've been on the job for 6 months, boom, you get the first payment. But, and this is a really clever part, to get that second payment after a year, you have to finish a mandatory financial literacy course. It's a smart way to build useful skills and give you a reason to stick with the job. So here's the bottom line for employees. If you're a first-timer and you're making up to $1 lakh a month, you're in. The incentive is 1 month's salary, capped at 15,000 rupees, and you get it in 2 payments. The whole idea is to help with those early costs of starting a new job, and more importantly, to pull you into the formal system and keep you there. Now, what's in it for the employers? Well, there's a pretty powerful incentive for them to hire. For every new employee they bring on above their baseline, they can get up to 3,000 rupees a month. And to give that all-important manufacturing sector an extra push, the benefit lasts for 4 years, while it's 2 years for other sectors. Of course, there's a catch. Companies have to be properly registered with the tax and pension authorities to get the cash. Okay, so we've got the plan, we know the why, and we've seen how it works. So let's wrap this up by taking a step back. What's the real outlook for jobs here? We need to weigh the incredible promise of this scheme against the very real roadblocks it's going to face. I mean, on the promise side, it's pretty compelling, right? You've got a boost for formal jobs, real cash support for young workers, and cheaper hiring costs for companies. But then you look at the pitfall side, and the challenges are huge. You're fighting against a deeply rooted informal economy, those stubborn skills gaps we talked about, and the fundamental problem of job quality, not just the number of jobs. And all of this leaves us with one final massive question. You've got a huge budget, you've got a crazy ambitious target, it's a massive coordinated effort. But can one big push, however well-funded, really be enough to reshape a job market as vast and complex as India's for a whole generation? I guess only time will tell.